usually, when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there's this underlying expectation of precision.
Right. It feels very engineered,
Yeah.
very clinical.
Exactly. It feels like engineering. You fall off a bike, your arm swells up, you go into the clinic, and the X-ray shows that jagged white line across the radius.
The visual proof is right there.
Yeah. The doctor just points to the monitor and says, there it is. Broken or not broken, the diagnostic reality is visible.
It's categorized and clean.
Right. And you can plan a course of treatment because the scope of the damage is entirely contained within the frame of that image.
And we really crave that level of visibility.
Yeah.
It provides the illusion of control.
Yeah.
When you can see the boundaries of a system, well, you can govern it.
But, step into the world of modern enterprise IT and software architecture, and that X-ray machine it's fundamentally shattered.
Completely broken.
We are looking at a diagnostic landscape that is just incredibly murky. You are trying to diagnose the health of a corporate network, but half of the patient's nervous system is completely invisible to your instruments.
Which is a terrifying position for any IT team to be in.
I know, absolutely. If you are listening to this right now, you likely believe your organization has a firm grip on the software your teams are using on a daily basis.
You'd hope so, right?
Yeah, you have an IT department, you have established procurement protocols, cybersecurity firewall.
All the standard defenses.
Right. You sit in quarterly budget meetings and review these massive organized spreadsheets of approved vendors.
But those spreadsheets are really just a comfort mechanism.
Well, so?
Well, they document the world as IT wishes it to be,
right?
Not the world as it actually operates.
Because beneath the surface of that, professional color-coded spreadsheet, there is a massive shadow economy operating across your company right now.
A huge one.
And it is being funded, dollar by $20 bill, by corporate credit cards.
Yeah, just completely bypassing the system.
Right. So to explore how IT teams can regain control over this rising shadow AI and SaaS sprawl, we are doing a deep dive today. We've got insights from Zylo's 2026 SaaS Management Index, Salt Security's State of API report, and methodologies like restorative engineering.
It's a lot to unpack, but it's so critical.
It really is. And to visualize the sheer scale of this disconnect, I want you to imagine you are a master architect.
Okay, I like this.
You have been commissioned to design a state-of-the-art, meticulously planned corporate headquarters. You calculate the load-bearing capacity of every single steel beam.
You know the fire rating of every internal wall.
Exactly. You even install multi-factor authentication retinal scanners at the front entrance. The building is a fortress governed by strict blueprints.
So the environment is perfectly mapped and therefore, in theory, perfectly secure.
In theory. But then, a year after the ribbon cutting, you are walking around the perimeter of your fortress. You look up and you realize something terrifying.
What's that?
The employees working inside felt your architectural layout was, well, a little too restrictive for their daily workflows.
Of course.
The hallways were too long, the meeting rooms were too small, so without submitting a single blueprint to the city, without asking for any structural permits, they have secretly built dozens of invisible, unpermitted rooms branching off the sides of the building.
Just tacking them on wherever they need them.
Right, using their own cheap materials. And worst of all, they left the doors to these invisible extensions wide open directly to the street.
Leaving the whole building vulnerable.
Exactly. Your multi-million-dollar retinal scanner at the front door is still functioning flawlessly, scanning the 10% of people who bother to use the main entrance.
Completely oblivious to the fact the entire perimeter has been bypassed.
Yeah, and this is where the philosophy of restorative engineering becomes a really critical lens for us today.
It really does. Because when a traditional IT director discovers those unpermitted rooms, their immediate visceral instinct is entirely punitive.
So they want to shut it down.
Exactly. The instinct is to lock down the entire building, freeze every single corporate credit card, and just send out a barrage of angry compliance mandates.
Which, makes sense from their perspective.
It does, but restorative engineering dictates that we analyze the human operator first. Technology, especially security infrastructure, should seamlessly restore safety and capability without adding cognitive friction to the user.
Because the employees building those extensions are not malicious actors trying to sabotage the firm.
Not at all.
they're just trying to get their jobs done.
Right. They're under immense, unprecedented pressure. I mean, the macroeconomic environment right now is demanding increased output, higher efficiency, continuous innovation.
Do more with less.
Always. So when an employee reaches for an unvetted generative AI tool, they are doing so out of a basic instinct for professional survival.
That makes total sense.
The goal of an IT organization cannot be to punish its workforce for seeking out efficiency. The objective must be to map those invisible rooms, understand the operational friction that caused them to be built in the first place, and engineer systems that automatically absorb the risk on behalf of the employee.
So to build a system that absorbs that risk, we first have to, strip away the illusion that our software portfolios are stable.
We have to look at the reality.
We need to look at the explosive reality of AI adoption happening right beneath our noses. The data from Xylo's 2026 SaaS Management Index provides a fascinating and frankly deceptive baseline here.
Deceptive is the perfect word for it.
Because if you just glance at their top-line surface metrics, everything looks remarkably calm. The average enterprise company right now manages about 305 software as a service applications.
Which is a lot, but manageable.
Right. And the total application count across these portfolios actually declined slightly year over year. It went down by 0.07%.
It's almost flat.
Exactly. If I am an IT director presenting to the board, I put that number on a slide and I declare victory. I say, look, we have stopped the sprawl. The app count is flat. We are managing the perimeter.
Well, it is a statistical sleight of hand.
Wait, really? How?
Well, the application count remained flat, sure, but the total SaaS spend across these same organizations increased by 8%.
Wow.
Yeah. We are now looking at a median annual spend sitting at $20.6 million. So the number of tools didn't grow, but the financial hemorrhage really accelerated.
I mean, on a $20 million baseline, an 8% increase is a massive, unplanned budget leak.
It's huge. And the underlying catalyst for that leak is a profound shift in the specific type of applications being adopted.
Which is AI.
Exactly. We're seeing a massive rotation into AI-native applications.
Mm.
Global spending on AI-native tools is up 108%.
Over double.
And when you isolate large enterprises, so organizations with over 10,000 employees, their spend on AI-native apps has surged by a staggering 393%.
Nearly 400%.
Yes. They are now spending an average of $1.2 million purely on AI-native tools that, in many cases, didn't even exist 3 years ago.
So a nearly 400% increase in large enterprise AI spend. But the top-line number of apps stayed flat. That implies a terrifying amount of churn beneath the surface.
The volatility is just extreme. Large enterprises are adding an average of 21 new applications every single month.
Every month.
Every single month. They might be retiring 21 legacy applications to keep that top-line metric flat at 305, but they're constantly swapping in entirely new AI-driven architectures.
Let me stop and just process the logistics of that, because 21 new enterprise-grade applications entering a company every single month is nuts.
It's a staggering pace.
Because traditional IT procurement is notoriously painfully slow. You have legal reviews negotiating data processing agreements. You have security teams running penetration test reviews.
You have finance debating seat license tiers.
Exactly. That process takes 6 to 9 months for a single vendor. How are 21 tools getting through that funnel every 30 days?
Well, they aren't going through the funnel at all.
They're not.
No. They are utilizing the expense layer bypass.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the structural blind spot that legacy IT frameworks fundamentally fail to account for.
The expense layer bypass.
Right. As you mentioned, the formal procurement cycle takes half a year. Adopting a bleeding-edge generative AI tool takes roughly 30 seconds.
Because all you need is a credit card.
Exactly. The only requirements are a corporate email address and a card.
The pressure on the employee creates the bypass. I mean, the employee is told to generate 100 new marketing assets by Friday. The legacy software the company provides will take them 3 weeks to do it.
It's an impossible task.
Right. And then the employee sees an ad for a new generative AI tool that can do it in 10 minutes. They are not going to open a JIRA ticket, submit a business justification form, and wait for a security review board to meet in November.
They'd be fired by then.
Exactly. They take out their corporate card, put the $20 monthly subscription on it, and expense it as miscellaneous software. It completely circumvents every safeguard the company has built.
And the telemetry we have confirms this behavioral shift entirely. The Xylo data reveals that ChatGPT is now the single most expensed application in the corporate world.
Not the most procured, the most expensed.
Exactly. Expense-based SaaS purchasing, meaning software bought outside of centralized IT procurement, grew by 267% year over year.
That is wild.
The balance of power has completely inverted. Business units outside of IT, like marketing, sales, engineering, individual contributors, they now control 81% of all SaaS spend.
81%.
IT is directly managing a mere 15% of the software budget.
So IT has literally become the minority shareholder in their own technology stack.
That's a great way to put it.
But I want to analyze the hidden incentives driving this, because it's not just a failure of internal corporate policy, right? The vendors themselves are engineering this bypass.
Oh, absolutely. It's their business model.
If you are a startup building a bottom-up generative AI tool, your entire go-to-market strategy relies on avoiding the enterprise security team. Going through a Fortune 500 security audit takes massive engineering resources that a startup just doesn't have.
They can't afford to wait 6 months for a deal to close.
Right. But if you price your tool at $20 a month, it falls safely under almost every middle manager's automatic expense approval limit. You guarantee fast, frictionless, recurring revenue.
The vendor actually wants the shadow economy to exist.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, okay, let's play devil's advocate. From the perspective of the company's risk profile, if an employee is just swiping a card for a $20 text generator, how much risk can that really introduce?
Yeah.
It is not like they are provisioning a new unencrypted database. It's a chat window.
Well, that specific rationalization is the genesis of modern catastrophic breaches.
Really, just from a chat window?
Yes, because the price of the software is entirely decoupled from the value of the data being exposed to it. That $20 swipe is the unpermitted room with the door wide open. We have to examine what the employee is actually doing with that interface.
Give me an example.
A senior engineer struggling with a complex bug will paste proprietary unreleased source code into that $20 black box to find the error. A financial analyst will upload confidential pre-earnings client data to generate a quick summary.
Oh, wow.
They're feeding the company's most sensitive, heavily regulated intellectual property into a third-party server that has never been vetted for data retention policies, encryption standards, or compliance frameworks.
So the cost of the tool is $20, but the cost of the intellectual property leak it facilitates is, well, it's incalculable.
Exactly. And this moves us from a theoretical discussion about budgets directly into the severe security vulnerabilities introduced by what we call the invisible worker.
The invisible worker. Let's dig into that attack surface, because this is where the security data paints a very grim picture.
It really does.
The Xylo data established the scale of the sprawl. 77% of IT leaders have discovered AI-powered features operating in their environment without their prior awareness.
Which is terrifying.
And 60% openly admit they simply lack visibility into all the generative AI tools currently in use by their employees. They are literally governing by guesswork.
And the financial consequences of operating blindly in this environment are severe. The global average cost of a data breach is currently $4.45 million.
Just on average.
Right. However, if that breach involves cloud or SaaS environments, which Shadow AI almost exclusively does, the average cost jumps to $5.17 million.
So a single blind spot can trigger a $5 million event.
Easily.
How are these breaches actually executing technically? I mean, the SALT Security State of API report noted that 99% of organizations experienced API security issues in the past 12 months.
99%. Basically everyone.
Yet 58% of these organizations monitor their APIs less than daily. There is a massive operational delta between how often the attacks are happening and how often the defenders are checking the perimeter.
And that operational delta is exactly where attackers thrive. But the most crucial paradigm shift highlighted by the SALT Labs data is the origin of these attacks.
Where are they coming from?
95% of attack attempts come from authenticated sources.
Wait, authenticated?
Yes. Furthermore, 98% target external-facing APIs.
So 95% come from authenticated sources, meaning the system believes the attacker is a legitimate, verified user who belongs there.
Yes. And this completely invalidates the legacy cybersecurity model.
The castle and moat.
Exactly. For decades, the industry relied on the castle and moat architecture. You build a massive firewall, the moat, to keep the unauthenticated bad actors out. The threat was conceptualized as a hooded hacker using brute force to smash through the firewall.
Like in a movie.
Right. But the reality today is that the threat is a compromised credential from a legitimate user.
So the sequence of events goes like this. Tell me if I'm right. An employee signs up for that unvetted $20 AI tool. They use their corporate email address to register. Maybe they reuse a password, or worse, they grant the AI tool oath access to their corporate calendar and inbox to, improve the AI's context.
We see that all the time.
And then 2 months later, that tiny, unvetted AI vendor suffers a breach. The hacker extracts the database of user tokens. They don't need to break through your corporate firewall.
Why would they?
Exactly. They just take the authenticated token the employee have voluntarily handed over to the shadow app, and they walk right through your front door.
They walk right in, and their primary targets are the APIs.
Why the API specifically?
Because APIs are the digital connective tissue of the modern enterprise. They allow your CRM to talk to your billing system, which talks to your inventory manager.
They hold all the data.
Exactly. When we examine the OWASP API Security Top 10, which is the definitive industry standard for tracking these vulnerabilities, we find that 80% of attacks align with known documented flaws.
Known flaws.
Yes. These are not exotic, invisible zero-day exploits developed by nation-states. They are architectural fundamentals being exploited.
But if they are known flaws, why are they so prevalent?
Take API8, for example, which is security misconfiguration. It accounts for a staggering 54% of all API attacks.
Over half.
Over half. And this is not a complex cryptographic failure. This is poor digital hygiene. It means the software was deployed with default passwords left active, unnecessary HTTP methods exposed, or verbose error messages that reveal underlying database structures when triggered.
Wait, so a hacker pings the API with a bad request, and instead of just returning a generic error 404, the API spits back a detailed error log showing exactly how the database is formatted.
Precisely. It gives them a blueprint. And the second most common vulnerability, accounting for 27% of attacks, is API1, known as Broken Object Level Authorization, or BLA.
BLA. Walk me through the mechanics of a BLA attack. How does an authenticated user exploit broken object level authorization?
Okay, consider the architecture of an online banking application. When you log in, the authentication layer verifies your identity. It confirms you are who you claim to be.
Right, I put in my username and password.
Exactly. The URL at the top of your browser might read something like bank.com account 12345. where 12345 is your specific account ID.
Makes sense.
Well, BOLA occurs when the system successfully checks who is logged in, but structurally fails to verify if that specific user has the authorization to view the object they are requesting.
So wait, an attacker simply modifies the URL.
Yes, they just change 12345 to 12346 and hit enter.
And it works.
Because the system only checked that they were an authenticated user and failed to check object-level permissions, the system serves up the data. The attacker is suddenly viewing a completely different customer's financial records.
That is terrifyingly simple. It requires almost no technical sophistication once you are inside.
None at all.
This loops perfectly back to the architectural analogy we used earlier. Authenticated BOLA attacks are the equivalent of having that multi-million-dollar retinal scanner on the front door of your fortress. The perimeter is undeniably secure. But because the business demands speed, you hand out permanent master keys to 300 random, unvetted delivery drivers.
Who are essentially your shadow APIs and AI apps.
Right. It literally does not matter how sophisticated the lock on the front door is. If the key being presented is authenticated and recognized by the internal system, the system just assumes trust.
And that assumption of trust is the fatal flaw. And, the proliferation of generative AI compounds this vulnerability exponentially.
How so?
Well, 40% of security teams now cite exploitable flaws introduced specifically by AI-generated code outputs.
From the AI itself writing code.
Yes. Employees are utilizing tools like GitHub Copilot or ChatGPT to write back-end code. They prompt the AI to build an API integration, and because they trust the machine, they push that code into production without subjecting it to traditional, rigorous security peer reviews.
Oh, man.
But the AI model is fundamentally optimizing for functionality and speed. It is trying to deliver working code as fast as possible. It is not necessarily optimizing for defensive architecture against something nuanced like BOLA.
It just wants the code to compile and run.
Exactly. The AI generates code that functionally works, but structurally bypasses authorization checks.
So the perimeter is dead. The attacks are coming from inside the house via authenticated shadow apps, and the very code running the internal systems was written by a hallucinating AI prioritizing speed over security.
It is a very fragile architecture right now.
It is a systemic vulnerability.
Absolutely.
So if the traditional firewall is obsolete and we can't manually audit every line of AI-generated code, how do IT teams actually spot and track these leaks? I mean, we can't just throw up our hands and accept the risk. We have to deploy technical mechanisms to map this invisible environment.
The first critical realization here is that the bottleneck is not the enforcement technology. We have endless tools designed to block traffic and terminate processes.
So what's the issue?
The bottleneck is the visibility layer. The foundational axiom of governance applies perfectly here. You cannot govern what you cannot see.
Right, if you don't know the unpermitted room exists, you can't send an inspector to check the wiring.
Exactly. So we must apply first principles thinking. The primary principle in this environment is build read-only systems first.
Read only first. Why?
You must comprehensively map the attack surface and understand the organic data flows before you attempt to enforce any blocking behaviors. If an IT team panics and starts blindly blocking IP addresses associated with AI vendors, they will inevitably break critical load-bearing business workflows.
Because people are relying on them.
Right. The marketing automation will fail, the sales forecasting models will crash, and when that happens, the employees won't stop using AI, they will just engineer a deeper, more obfuscated shadow workaround.
So how do we achieve visibility without introducing the kind of friction that drives employees further underground?
We implement a methodology called zero-friction AI discovery. To eliminate workflow friction, IT must shift its integration point entirely.
Shift it to where?
Traditionally, IT attempts to exert control at the workstation layer. They mandate the installation of heavy, intrusive monitoring agents on every employee's laptop.
Oh, people hate those.
They do.
Yeah.
These agents drain battery life, slow down processing power, and create deep resentment regarding privacy. Instead of monitoring the keystrokes, you monitor the capital. You integrate at the expense layer.
Always follow the money. The choke point isn't the laptop, it's the corporate credit card.
Exactly. The most elegant and effective choke point is the digital intersection of your single sign-on logs, your SSO, and your expense management APIs.
Walk me through the technical mechanics of that intersection. How does bridging those two specific systems illuminate the shadow network?
Consider the data exhaust generated by normal corporate operations. Your SSO provider, whether that is Okta, Microsoft Entra, or Ping Identity, locks every single instance an employee authenticates into an application using their corporate identity.
It's a massive list of logins.
Right. It generates a massive stream of identity data. Conversely, sometimes employees bypass SSO entirely and use a personal email address to sign up for an unapproved app.
Which is where the credit card comes in.
Exactly. That is where your expense management API, platforms like Concur, Expensify, or Ramp, becomes invaluable. By writing a relatively lightweight script to continuously reconcile the identity logs from the SSO with the vendor names and categorization codes on rogue expense receipts, organizations can perform a massive continuous audit.
That's so smart.
They bridge the gap between the identity the employee uses and the money they spend. Companies deploying this method routinely identify 50 or more entirely unapproved, unknown AI vendors operating within their environment in under 60 seconds.
Under 60 seconds. That is a brilliant application of existing data. It is entirely invisible to the employee. They don't have to fill out an intrusive survey. They don't have to install a sluggish tracker on their machine. They just go about their day. You simply match the digital authentication attempt with the financial receipt, and suddenly the entire shadow network lights up on the IT dashboard.
It restores visibility without penalizing the workforce. But we must acknowledge that this methodology has a temporal limitation.
What do you mean?
Well, what if we need to extrapolate this to a significantly higher security environment? Consider an organization worried about immediate, catastrophic, intellectual property exfiltration.
Like a defense contractor or something.
Exactly, a defense contractor designing aerospace components or a proprietary trading firm writing algorithmic models. For these entities, catching the expense receipt after the fact is insufficient.
Because the beta's already out there.
Right. If a quantitative engineer pastes the core logic of a new trading algorithm into an unvetted LLM on a Tuesday and the expense report is filed on a Friday, the intellectual property is already compromised. The damage is done at the speed of the initial keystroke.
The data is gone before the credit card is even billed. Catching the receipt is completely useless in that scenario. So how do you engineer a system that stops the exfiltration at the moment of intent without slowing down the entire network?
This brings us to a concept from the restorative engineering methodology known as Project AIThe. It is classified as an edge layer API sentinel.
Okay, an edge layer API sentinel. What does that actually mean?
What makes it unique is that it represents a physical bridge between digital logic and physical security. We are talking about a localized, rack-mounted hardware gateway.
A physical appliance.
Yes, a physical appliance. It is physically installed in the corporate server room or data center, sitting in line directly between the corporate local area network and the external internet.
Wait. Let me challenge the fundamental architecture here. Dropping a physical industrial metal box into a server rack.
I know how it sounds.
We are operating in the cloud era. The entire industry has spent the last decade virtualizing everything, moving away from on-premise hardware to software-defined perimeters. Why on earth would we regress to deploying a physical piece of hardware to solve a decentralized digital SaaS problem? That sounds like a logistical and maintenance nightmare.
It is the natural initial objection of any modern cloud architect.
Yeah.
But you have to analyze the vulnerabilities of a purely software-defined perimeter.
Which are what?
Software can be bypassed. An engineer with local admin rights or a sophisticated script can tunnel around a software firewall. They can modify registry keys or disable background processes.
That's true.
But they cannot bypass the physical fiber optic cable connecting the building to the internet backbone. AIThe sits in line on that physical cable.
Oh, I see.
The genius of the architecture is that it establishes an unavoidable physical choke point for a highly decentralized digital problem. It invokes Dieter Rams' design principles of honest materials and unapologetic utility. A physical appliance does not pretend to be digital magic. It is a heavy, unavoidable point of convergence.
So it's an unbypassable physical toll booth. But how does Project AIThe actually inspect the traffic inside that physical box without crippling network speeds? If it's inspecting every single packet leaving the building, wouldn't that cause massive latency?
It avoids latency because it does not perform traditional deep packet inspection. Attempting to decrypt, read, and re-encrypt every piece of outbound web traffic would indeed destroy network performance and violate privacy standards.
Right.
AIThe is specifically engineered to analyze outbound API calls using heuristics. It runs a localized, highly optimized machine learning model directly on the hardware silicon.
So it's looking for patterns.
Yeah, exactly. This model is trained to recognize the distinct physical characteristics of a data transfer, specifically the packet structures, the payload weights, and the timing signatures of large language model prompts.
Wait, so it's not reading the content of the data, it's looking for the rhythm and shape of the prompt.
Precisely. The telemetry of human interaction is distinct. A human typing a standard query into a search engine has a specific erratic timing signature and a very light payload weight.
Makes sense.
However, when an engineer highlights 10,000 lines of proprietary C++ source code and pastes it into the chat interface of an unapproved AI web tool, it creates a massive, instantaneous, heavy block of encrypted packets, heading to an unrecognized or poorly rated IP address.
Oh, wow.
AIThe recognizes that specific structural shape. It knows what a massive data exfiltration to an LLM looks like in transit.
And then what does it do?
If it detects that signature targeting an unapproved AI tool, AIThe physically drops the packets at the network edge. The data literally never leaves the physical confines of the building. And simultaneously, it silently alerts the IT security dashboard.
That is restorative engineering in its purest form. It restores the safety of the perimeter in real time, without the employee even realizing that a complex heuristic hardware operation just saved them from leaking the company's most guarded secrets.
They just think the web page timed out.
Wow. It maps the invisible action and blocks the critical failure without requiring the user to alter their behavior or jump through authorization hoops.
That's the beauty of it.
So between the SSO reconciliation and edge hardware like AIThe, we can physically and digitally stop the data from bleeding out. We can secure the intellectual property.
Right.
But that only solves half the problem. What about the budget? Because as we established in the opening numbers, the cost of these tools is skyrocketing. Stopping a data leak doesn't stop the vendor from charging the corporate card. Governing this requires merging SaaS management with FinOps.
And this is an incredibly difficult transition for most organizations. FinOps, or Cloud Financial Operations, emerged over the last decade as the critical discipline for managing highly variable cloud infrastructure costs.
Like AWS bills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was built to manage the complex billing of AWS EC2 instances or Microsoft Azure storage buckets. But the rapid sprawl of SaaS, and specifically AI SaaS, is forcing FinOps to evolve or face irrelevance.
And the imperative for that evolution is the shifting pricing model of software itself, right?
Absolutely.
Because the Xylo data highlighted that 78% of IT leaders reported unexpected charges tied specifically to consumption-based or AI features in the past year alone.
78%.
And the downstream consequence of those unexpected bills is severe. 61% of those leaders had to actively cancel or delay other strategic IT projects just to cover the unplanned SaaS cost increases.
It's devastating for planning.
The shadow economy is actively cannibalizing the planned IT budget.
It is a zero-sum game for the budget, and the friction is being generated by how AI vendors have chosen to monetize. Historically, software was a flat fee. You pay for a license, you're done.
Right.
Today, among AI companies actively monetizing their platforms, only 53% still utilize traditional, predictable flat subscriptions. The market is shifting rapidly. 31% are now deploying hybrid pricing models, and 11% use pure usage-based or consumption-based pricing architectures.
The transition to consumption-based pricing fundamentally breaks traditional procurement. Let's look at how this usage-based pricing operates in the wild.
The customer support sector is the perfect microcosm for this shift. Vendors like Zendesk are transitioning their pricing structures to charge approximately $1 per automated resolution.
So every time the AI works, it costs a buck.
Yes, if their AI agent successfully handles a customer ticket without human intervention, you pay $1. Intercom operates on a similar model, charging 99 cents per resolved conversation.
I want to use an analogy to really lock in the financial danger of this shift. Let's compare the legacy SaaS model to an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Go.
You pay your flat subscription fee, say $50 a month, and you can eat as much as you want. You can keep the software open 24 hours a day, run a million queries, and the price remains exactly $50. It is highly predictable.
The finance team loves the buffet model because they can forecast it perfectly in an annual spreadsheet.
Exactly. But the new AI SaaS consumption model, it is exactly like a hotel minibar.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Every individual peanut you eat, every bottle of water you twist open, or in the context of our software, every single API call you make, every customer ticket the AI resolves, it triggers an invisible microcharge.
And you don't realize it's happening.
The fundamental danger of the minibar is the latency of the bill. You don't see the total accumulation of those microcharges until you are standing at the checkout desk at the end of the month.
And that psychological disconnect between consumption and billing is exactly why traditional FinOps frameworks are collapsing when applied to SaaS.
They just aren't built for it.
According to the State of FinOps report, a staggering 2% of organizations currently possess FinOps teams that holistically cover cloud infrastructure, SaaS, and generative AI together.
2%. That means 98% of the corporate world is treating these massive expenses in completely isolated silos. Finance looks at the AWS bill, procurement looks at the SaaS renewals, and nobody is looking at the shadow AI consumption until a budget is completely blown.
And the practitioners know they are blind. 70% of FinOps professionals report they have severely limited visibility into SaaS usage data compared to the granular telemetry they get from their cloud infrastructure.
They just can't see it.
Less than half can accurately allocate those SaaS costs back to the specific business unit that incurred them. Because AI vendors are weaponizing these consumption models, costs are surfacing wildly outside of traditional annual budgeting cycles.
Give me a real-world example of how that blows up.
Imagine a scenario where a marketing team launches a new campaign. The campaign goes incredibly viral.
Great news, right?
You'd think so. The generative AI tool they're using to process incoming leads suddenly executes 10 times the anticipated volume. That is great for marketing metrics, but because it is a consumption-based tool, that viral success just blew a massive, unforecasted hole in the quarterly IT budget.
So the success of the business unit becomes a financial liability for the IT department.
Exactly.
So what is the structural solution? How does a FinOps team actually get its arms around the minibar and forecast those peanuts?
FinOps must transcend the invoice. They have to integrate directly into SaaS management platforms at the API level. You must have the capability to pull usage data in real time.
So you see it as it happens.
Right. By tracking daily consumption metrics, FinOps teams can apply predictive modeling to accurately forecast usage-based pricing trajectories and detect financial anomalies long before the end of the billing cycle.
Before checkout.
Exactly. If the marketing team's AI usage spikes dramatically on Tuesday afternoon, the FinOps dashboard needs an automated alert on Wednesday morning. Waiting for the vendor invoice 3 weeks later is a catastrophic failure of governance.
So we implement real-time tracking. We know exactly what they're spending, and we are monitoring the daily consumption. We've solved the visibility problem.
Mostly, yeah.
But visibility doesn't equal efficiency. Are they actually using all these tools efficiently? Because knowing you spent $1,000 on minibar peanuts doesn't mean you actually needed to consume $1,000 worth of peanuts.
And the telemetry proves that the efficiency is abysmal. The data shows an almost unbelievable amount of waste built into this system.
How much waste?
On average, organizations leave 36% of their provisioned SaaS licenses completely unused.
36%? Over a third.
Over a third of the software inventory that organizations are actively paying for is sitting idle, generating zero business value.
And with the hype cycle surrounding AI, the redundancy must be even worse because every single department wants to procure their own instance of the newest trending tool.
Oh, the redundancy is unprecedented. In fact, for the first time since the index began tracking, generative AI has entered the list of the most redundant app functions.
Really? Where does it rank?
It currently ranks at number 10. The average enterprise organization has 7 different applications in their portfolio performing the exact same generative AI tasks.
7 apps.
Yes. They have 7 different discrete tools procured to write emails, generate internal images, or summarize meeting transcripts.
7 tools doing the exact same thing across different silos. That is pure, unadulterated organizational chaos.
It is a massive financial drain, compounding year over year. Consider that SaaS renewals now account for 87% of total software spend.
87% just re-upping what you already have.
Right. The average organization is tasked with managing 211 software renewals every single year. If you do not actively clean up the portfolio, you are simply automating the renewal of waste.
So the imperative then is a massive systemic cleanup operation. We have mapped the invisible, we have tracked the consumption, now we have to categorize the risk and brutally kill the redundancy.
We have to.
How does an IT organization execute that systematically without grinding the business to a halt?
We propose a highly structured two-pronged approach. First, you must categorize all discovered applications by their inherent risk profile.
Okay, that makes sense.
You cannot treat a harmless, unapproved color palette design tool with the same draconian urgency that you treat an unapproved AI tool processing sensitive financial data. We recommend applying an established external framework, such as the Netscope Cloud Confidence Index, to strip the emotion out of the evaluation.
How does the Netscope Cloud Confidence Index evaluate these tools? What metrics are they actually looking at?
It is an exhaustive evaluation. The index scores SaaS applications across dozens of rigorous security and compliance dimensions. They look at data protection policies, SOC 2 compliance certifications, disaster recovery protocols, and granular access controls.
Okay, and what does that reveal?
The aggregate reality revealed by this index is sobering. Currently, only 24% of all SaaS apps on the market are rated excellent for enterprise security.
Only a quarter of the tools available meet the standard?
Exactly 1/4. 40% are rated medium, meaning they have significant gaps in their security posture, and a highly concerning 1.3% are rated poor.
Yikes.
So your primary operational step is triage. You run your newly discovered shadow portfolio against the index, you identify any shadow AI tool rated poor or low, and you eliminate it from the environment immediately. The risk of a breach far outweighs any marginal productivity gain.
You amputate the immediate threats and the second prong of the approach.
The second step is tackling functional redundancy. You analyze those 7 different generative AI tools performing the same task, and you consolidate them.
Pick a winner.
Exactly. You standardize the organization around 1 or 2 heavily vetted enterprise platform vendors who can provide the necessary security guarantees, data processing agreements, and economies of scale. By enforcing this consolidation, organizations achieve an average of 17% hard dollar savings during their renewal negotiations.
Although, okay, let me pause the consolidation plan and pull on a thread from our earlier API discussion. How do you definitively know which tools you can safely turn off?
That's the tricky part.
If an unapproved AI tool has an API hooked into your Salesforce instance, simply revoking the license might silently break a critical automated sales routing process.
And that specific scenario highlights the absolute necessity of API posture governance. Currently, a mere 10% of organizations possess a comprehensive strategy to manage their entire API ecosystem, from design all the way to deployment and deprecation.
Only 10%.
Another 43% state they plan to implement one, but in the present moment, they are flying blind. Without robust posture governance, Consolidating and deleting tools is incredibly dangerous. IT doesn't actually know which undocumented tools are structurally load-bearing.
So you could pull a Jenga block and crash the whole tower.
Exactly. You might look at a spreadsheet, determine an app is redundant, and cancel the contract, only to discover it was running a critical data synchronization workflow in the background that just halted operations.
Okay, assuming you map the APIs and ensure nothing breaks technically, I have to push back on the human element of consolidation.
Always the hardest part.
Let's walk through the reality of a corporate audit. You run the discovery script, you find the redundancy, you identify that a key director in the marketing department has been relying on an unapproved AI writing tool that Netscope rates as medium risk.
Okay.
You need to move that director to the enterprise-approved, highly secure platform. From a behavioral psychology standpoint, humans violently resist losing the specific tools they are accustomed to.
They hate it.
Their muscle memory and daily workflows are intricately tied to the user interface of that specific shadow app. How do you take away an employee's favorite unapproved tool without causing a total departmental revolt?
That is the ultimate crucible of change management. If an IT department simply acts as an authoritarian regime and revokes access overnight, the employees will view IT as the enemy. They will inevitably find a new, even harder to detect workaround.
The solution has to rely heavily on demonstration and empathy. You cannot just mandate the change. You have to prove to the employee that the approved enterprise-grade tool can execute their exact same workflow with the exact same velocity, but without subjecting the company to the risk of a catastrophic data breach.
You have to win them over.
You have to architect the environment so that the secure path is inherently the path of least resistance. You don't issue a decree saying no. You sit down and say, we see you are trying to achieve X. Use this approved platform instead. It is already securely integrated with your internal data sources. You don't have to manually upload CSV files anymore, and you never have to file an expense report for it again.
That approach encapsulates the core philosophy of restorative security. The ultimate goal is to restore the employee's capability to do their job while quietly, seamlessly removing the invisible risk.
Which brings us to the final and arguably most important architectural piece of the puzzle. We have audited the mess. We have consolidated the tools.
We've done the cleanup.
Right. But to prevent this entire chaotic cycle of sprawling, discovering, and consolidating from simply regenerating itself next year, IT requires a permanent, friction-free approval template for the future.
We cannot rely on periodic, exhaustive audits. The velocity of technology development is too fast. We must architect a permanent system that governs software adoption continuously.
And the fear in the market is palpable. According to the data, 55% of organizations have actively slowed down the rollout of new applications into production, specifically because of API security concerns.
They're paralyzed.
The fear of a breach is actively degrading business velocity. How do we build an operational template that enables speed but mathematically ensures security?
We synthesize the methodologies into a structured, four-step template for standardizing software approvals in the age of AI.
Walk me through it. Step 1.
Step 1 is the implementation of zero-friction intake. We discussed earlier how traditional IT ticketing systems act as a massive behavioral bottleneck. Employees actively avoid them.
Right.
Therefore, the new template dictates that you do not force the employee to come to you to initiate a request. You integrate automated discovery at the expense and SSO layer to catch the procurement intent organically.
So you see it happening in real time.
The moment they swipe the corporate card or attempt an unapproved SSO login, the intake process is initiated automatically in the background.
That fundamentally changes the relationship. You are capturing the intent at the point of purchase, rather than demanding compliance beforehand. What is the second step?
Step 2 is the risk categorization overlay. Once the application's existence is discovered via the intake process, the system instantly, and without human intervention, runs the requested app against a strict security matrix.
Like the Netscope index.
Exactly. Does the vendor's architecture adhere to the OWASP API Security Top 10? What is its specific Netscope Cloud Confidence rating?
And then what happens?
If the application scores highly across all dimensions, it can be automatically fast-tracked for limited provisioning. If it scores low, or if the vendor is unknown, it is automatically flagged for manual security review. This programmatic approach removes the subjective, slow bottleneck of a human analyst having to manually review every single $20 request.
The machine filters the noise so the humans can focus on the actual anomalies. What about step 3? Because we have established that we cannot solely rely on software enforcement, the human operators have to be upgraded as well.
Step 3 is the mandate for continuous developer and user training. This is especially critical for internal engineering teams.
Why them specifically?
If your developers are utilizing generative AI copilots to write internal code, they must be rigorously trained on the specific, nuanced vulnerabilities that AI introduces, such as the BOLA flaws we discussed earlier.
Right, the authorization bypass.
Currently, 56% of mature organizations are utilizing developer training, specifically focused on secure coding practices for generative AI. You have to train the human brain to audit and suspect the machine's output.
And the final piece of the template.
Step 4 is continuous runtime monitoring. This represents the death of the point-in-time approval model.
What's wrong with point in time?
In legacy IT, a piece of software was audited once, approved, and then functionally assumed safe forever. That model is obsolete. An application might have a pristine security posture today, but a single misconfigured update pushed by the vendor tomorrow could introduce a massive API-8 vulnerability.
So it changes constantly.
You must shift from static approvals to continuous behavioral monitoring of all APIs in production to catch those configuration anomalies the moment they occur.
I want to use an analogy to tie this entire four-step template together. The legacy method of IT procurement, the high friction, the 6-month wait times, the manual reviews, the static approvals. It is identical to the old airport security lines.
Absolutely. High anxiety, high friction.
You have to physically stop your forward momentum. You have to unpack your entire bag, take out your laptop, take off your shoes. It creates massive stressful bottlenecks. People get incredibly frustrated. And frankly, because the human screeners get fatigued, contraband still slips through. A high-friction system actively encourages people to look for bypasses.
Friction creates the shadow economy.
But this new template, the zero-friction intake catching the intent, the automated risk overlays acting as the scanner, the continuous monitoring, it operates like a modern state-of-the-art airport security tunnel.
Just walking straight through.
Exactly. Instead of stopping and unpacking your life, you just walk through the tunnel at your normal walking speed. The system is scanning you continuously in real time, analyzing the shape and density of what you are carrying. It instantly flags anomalies without ever slowing your momentum.
That's the ideal state.
It only forces a stop for the 1% of interactions that actually present a structural risk, while the other 99% of the workforce gets to their flights on time, completely unaware of the massive security apparatus operating around them.
That is the ultimate realization of restorative engineering. The security posture is incredibly rigorous, but the functional experience for the operator is entirely frictionless. You restore their operational momentum while quietly, continuously managing the risk in the background.
Let's summarize the extensive journey we've navigated today. We started by diagnosing the murky reality of enterprise IT, tearing down the illusion that a flat application count means a stable environment, and mapping the massive, invisible risk of the shadow AI economy.
We really pulled back the curtain there.
We explored the terrifying architectural shift toward authenticated API attacks, understanding that the threat is no longer breaking through the firewall, but walking through the front door with a valid token. We detailed how to integrate FinOps directly into the SaaS layer to tame the wild, unforecasted consumption billing of the API minibar.
The microcharges.
And finally, we engineered a restorative, zero-friction template to continuously govern the software sprawl.
It serves as a comprehensive, actionable blueprint for regaining control of the network. It transitions the IT department from being perceived as an operational roadblock to becoming an invaluable enabler of business velocity.
But before we officially close the file on this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought to consider regarding the future of this problem. We have spent this entire session analyzing how employees are buying shadow AI tools.
Right, the purchasing behavior.
The friction point today is procurement. But let's look at the horizon line. Gartner aggressively predicts that by 2026, 75% of all new enterprise applications will be built using low-code or no-code platforms. 75%. That's huge.
And the vast majority of those applications will be built by citizen developers, employees operating completely outside of the formal IT engineering department.
The democratization of development introduces a completely new vector of systemic risk.
Exactly. So ask yourself this question. If your organization is struggling this profoundly to manage the financial and security risks of shadow AI tools that employees are merely purchasing with a credit card today, what happens tomorrow?
That's a scary thought.
What happens when those non-technical marketing directors and sales managers aren't just buying shadow apps, but are utilizing AI to literally build complex, interconnected shadow infrastructures that are running critical company operations without a single line of code ever being reviewed by an architect?
It represents a profound shift in the foundational risk of an organization. The perimeter isn't just porous, the perimeter is actively, continuously being redesigned from the inside by the people it was built to protect. Something to keep you awake tonight as you look at your organization's architecture. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It has been an incredible exploration of a complex, evolving vulnerability that is only going to accelerate. If you take one actionable directive away from this conversation, let it be this. Do not wait for the catastrophic audit.
Take action now.
Go talk to your finance team today. Pull your expense management API logs and run a script to cross-reference them with your SSO identity data. Find out exactly how many invisible, unpermitted rooms are attached to your building right now. Until next time, keep diving deep.